Alright, we are recording. Continuing in the Omnibus with Goodyng the Polymath, written by Mike Barron, artist Will Conrad, colors Jay Brown. Cato Goodyng is the eclectic genius of Flores Park. His Goodyng services came to save the day when Avery Silverman's ranch, that's Isom, as I recall, that's his name, was attacked in a blaze by the mysterious creatures known as the Devlins. But how did this man go from childhood prodigy to self-made man? This is his story, from underdog to hero. And I read that, and I'm just like, how does that, since when is a prodigy an underdog? Like, legitimately, a prodigy, by definition, can't be an underdog. I mean, at least not generally speaking. I mean, yeah, sure, you might be a prodigy and still get beat up because you're an intellectual prodigy, not like a sports prodigy. But it's like, you're not an underdog. In fact, actually, when you think about what actually goes on in the story, and think about it now, I would never describe him as an underdog. I'm gonna say, yeah, he got bullied, but I mean that doesn't make you by definition an underdog. So it's I don't. Yeah. We got the letter here written by Mike Barron, and I'm going to criticize the letter, but let me be clear on one thing. It shouldn't, the criticisms that I have of that don't apply to the main story. It did worry me a little bit, but no, the story's fine. Just because the letter is kind of pretentious. With its like, really? I mean, I get the whole how he's talking up Eric July at the front, likening him to Athena bursting out of Zeus's skull, but then says that no, that's not the correct analogy. And it's like, that's a little much, but it's like, you know what? It's kind of poetic, so yeah, I don't need to consider that pretentious. But it's the thing that really, really was like, seriously, that this is what you're writing here. So he's just talking about, getting into all this. There was also a new development, Excepts. That's what Eric calls the superhumans he created. That's fine. They're not superheroes. So what? Perhaps that term died with the United States. Some Excepts did good, others not so much. But it's like, perhaps that term died with the United States, because remember, in the context of the story, the United States is not so united. But still, it's like, since when did you have superheroes that didn't also have supervillains? I mean, it's part of the superhero mythos that, yes, you have these people with great power, but fundamentally, what matters is the people. If they're good people, they will do good things, or at least try to do good things. If they're bad people, they will do bad things. And if they're in the middle, then they have to struggle with the temptation, good or evil. Constantly, they have to struggle with it. And it's like, but this is like, oh, maybe that the term superhero died. It's like, are we supposed to, I mean, this is why it's pretentious. It's like, are we supposed to pretend that prior to this, all superhero stories, no, everyone with powers, they were good guys? What are you talking about? And maybe very early on, I'm not sure when Superman first got a supervillain, but even then, I mean, it's like, I don't know how, let's go with Lex Luthor, because he is human. I don't know how old Lex Luthor is in the Superman mythos, but still is. Even he was a super genius. He was incredibly intelligent and very, let's go with willful. I think that's a fair way to describe him. So it's like, even he is still a super villain to a degree. He is still super. But he is still just human. So in that sense, he's I'm not sure how much for the physicality, but he'd be more like Batman. Like, if Bruce Wayne were evil, you might have something more like Lex Luthor. But it's like, Batman's still a superhero, we still consider him super. I just don't like that pretentiousness there. Anyway, so then we get to, he's just, at home, he's still a kid, presumably, like, middle school, maybe elementary school. Well, yeah, actually, because What was he being taught? His father asked, "What did you do in school today? Reading, writing, arithmetic. What kind of arithmetic? Calculus." By the way, that's false. I get he's just making the joke. Reading the three R's: reading, writing, arithmetic. I got that, but it's like calculus is not arithmetic. Arithmetic is legitimately just the adding and subtracting, multiplication, division. It's a basic geometric functions. Sometimes not even including the square root, which is one of the geometric functions. Calculus is its own class of math, like how arithmetic is one thing, geometry is another, algebra is another, calculus is another. Anyhow, oh yeah, he's in 4th grade. It does say here. So it's basically just setting up that at this young age, yes, he is very much a genius. He has a teacher that has apparently recognized this and has decided to support that, and so is letting him learn about limits, differentiation, integration, and multivariable. But that he is supposed to keep it secret so the other kids don't get jealous. Actually be envious, but anyway. I'm sorry. It's just, it is a pet peeve of mine. That jealousy is an internal thing, envy is external. So, him getting attention that the other children want to have would be envy on their part. They want to have something that somebody else has. Jealousy is about trying to keep what's already yours. But to an extreme level. So, Jesse's girl is envy. I'm just trying to think, what would be a cultural reference I can make that people might get? That's jealousy. It not immediately coming to mind, but let's just keep with this anyway. But it is just his parents were like, the teacher's doing this. Why weren't we informed? It's like, well, we're supposed to keep it secret, but then it's also well, no, the teacher left a message. You really need to check your messages. But they're good with it. At least, well, hey, I'm not sure who's necessarily speaking, but okay, yeah. Really should check your messages, dear. This is the mother speaking. Why don't you call Mr. Risk, the teacher, and set up a meeting? What for? I approve. Done deal. Let him know we appreciate what he's doing. Mom, may I be excused? I'm pretty sure that's Goodyng, first name Cato, by the way. Can you put the dishes in the dishwasher? I'll do it. Oh no, I'll do it. So that's different color there, so it might be somebody else. By the way, it does explain that he is named Cato after. I'm actually not sure what the correct way to singularly identify him is, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this is the Cato who, when he was the Cato from Rome, when he was in the Senate, would always end his speeches with "And Carthage must be destroyed," which is an interesting part of history because. Basically, at that time, the two great Mediterranean powers, well, Western Mediterranean, because yes, Egypt would still have existed. I think this would have been long enough ago that you wouldn't have had Rome conquered it, although it would have been Greek at this point. Anyway, yeah, so I guess it would have been, it may have still been like under Rome. But not to the point of Rome directly controlling it yet. Anyhow. But Rome and Carthage were basically the two superpowers of their day and of that location. And they were very much at odds. And they, for a time, had some peace, and Cato was basically arguing that, hey, we have to... hang on. Just need to reply to that. Got a text I need to reply to. Yeah, handy watch. Not a smartwatch, but no, it is a smartwatch, not an Apple Watch. It's a Pebbles Time Steel. Can't get these things anymore. Anyway. So he was constantly saying that, yeah, we need to destroy this enemy, even though they were at a time of peace. But I think I actually coincidentally just saw something talking about how after this is when Hannibal actually came about and was a very successful Carthaginian general that nearly conquered Rome. So the argument being that, hey, if we had actually destroyed them earlier, we would never have had this threat. So, yeah. Anyway, so we do get the start and end of this segment when he's in 4th grade. Show him, like, in his room on his bed, reading what appears. Oh no, I guess there's gyro on there. I can't quite tell. He's reading a book, but it does look like it could be a comic book. Just. It does say gyro there, so it might be. Like, I can make out the word gyro. I can't make out anything else. But it looks like there's an explosion on the front cover. And the way he's holding it, and it looks like it could be kind of floppy, is why I kind of think that, yeah, that might be a comic book, which would make sense. Unfortunately, it's like never brought up later. Because there's that question of when you have a prodigy like Goodyng here, how does he know to be moral? Because that is important. I mean, it's like I mentioned Superman and Batman earlier. Superman was raised by I can't remember Pa Kent's name. Just Martha. Anyway, but he was raised by the Kents, who instilled in him both their Christian values and also American values. So it's like, they instilled it in him so successfully that, truth, justice, and the American way. That's what he is always about later, when he's an adult, when he is a superhero. Batman, his morals were not just, bought from his parents being good people, but also witnessing their murder. And so that shifted him where now he has to be a protector. So again, but protection that we don't actually get a sense of where it comes from, where his morality comes from here. In theory, it could be these if those are comic books, that's where it could be from. But we never see him holding a comic book later. Which actually, as I think about that, is something. I mean, true, we've been mainly dealing with adults earlier, but it does seem like some of these stories do lack the sense of consequences. I know I've criticized that before as far as the consequences of, you just gave this person this ability, where does this go? It should be causing these. But this is more actual just storytelling consequences. Because it is, like, even if it were just later on, we saw him reading another comic book. Even just something like that would be helpful. So anyway, now he's in high school. And I have to check, but it refers to his teacher being Mrs. McGillicuddy, which I know that's out of classic television. Feel like, was that Lucy's maiden name? Yeah, Mrs. McGillicuddy was Lucy Ricardo's mother. Okay, that's what I thought. It is interesting to see some of those kinds of things in there, like the Maltese Falcon in Salvage as well. But anyway, so he's in class. For whatever reason, he has a bully now. Ron Hodges, is that what we call it is? Yes. And decides to start picking on him. This is not explained, and he just snaps a rubber band at him, hitting him in the back of the neck, and it's just somehow him then turning around to see, and we get the Mr. Goodyng, may I have your full attention from the teacher, and it's like, I mean, look, I get a teacher's not necessarily completely aware of everything going on, but if you have a kid who just turned back like that, and you potentially heard a sound, and that made you turn, like, I don't know why you'd single out the kid that you saw turn around. The kid is most likely reacting, just as you are. Anyhow. But there's no explanation for why Ron is picking on it. One thing that I did notice, though, when in the next panel, let's see if this will come through. So up here. That's him. He stands out because he's the only brightly blonde-headed kid. So that could be why. But again, there's no explanation given. And that's, everyone else, it tends to be brown-haired, or at least brownish. There's a redhead in there. I'm not sure. We meet Gina, and I'm not sure what we'd necessarily call her hair. I guess it would be a brown, but it also goes a little purple. Excuse me. But in any case, getting out of the class, Ron makes a beeline for him and just, hey, Egghead, and immediately punches him in the gut. There is no setup for Ron doing this, though. And I get, bully's gonna bully, but it still is, a bully is going to pick a target for a reason. It's not arbitrary. It's gonna pick a target that they feel won't fight back, or they feel in some way lesser than. So I'm saying, hey, Egghead, it's like, you're smarter than me, therefore I'm gonna beat you up, because I'm not that smart. That sounds kind of bad, but it is an envy. It's how I explained about envy before. It can be envy, but how does he know he's an egghead? Where's this coming from? Especially since the teacher just it's the first day of school, so how does he already know this? Because it's also stated Gina went to the same junior high, so middle school, as Ron. But there's no indication that Goodyng and Gina know each other. So Ron literally is just in this class, sees this blonde-headed kid, and just says, that's who I'm going to bully, and I'm going to call him an egghead. Where did this come from? I do still like the story overall, but there are weaknesses like this. And this is also one of those, is this a comic book thing? Where you just, let me hint at something with, he's holding up a book. Maybe that's comic book, maybe it's not. Or in this case, give no motivation for the bully selecting Goodyng, and just, the reader can just invent their own reason. I prefer novels where it's like, no, it actually will say, so that you know who the characters are. You're not filling in who the characters are yourself. They're telling you. I mean, sometimes, yes, things are natural, but it's more intentional. This just feels like, yeah, we forgot, or, well, the reader's just going to know. It's like, you created this character. Why should I be the one creating it? And now, yes, there is a line there that, absolutely, there's a line. I just feel this is potentially too far towards the reader is creating the character than the author is creating the character. So, yeah, But as I said, is that just a comic book thing? Is that just a comic book thing? And also for anyone being like, well, it's show, don't tell. And it's like, well, no, because you're showing me a bully beating somebody up that it's the first time they've met. You're not showing me why he picked Goodyng. And it legitimately, why did I bring up the hair? It legitimately could be because of his hair. Except it's, hey, Egghead. I mean, it could, if it were, hey, Blondie, it's like, okay, he stands out. He's different. That's the reason. It's got nothing to do with his intelligence. That's the reason. Okay, I'm good with that. I don't need more. That fits. But, hey, Egghead, how does he know he's an egghead? How does he know he's intelligent? And why did he choose to pick on him earlier, just when in the class? It's like, when no words are exchanged. It's... But again, if it were, hey, Blondie, now I got it. You know what, I actually kind of... Okay. No reason given that Ron picked Goodyng to bully, though he is mysteriously aware of Goodyng's intelligence, calling him Egghead before punching him. If it were, if he had said, hey, Blondie, instead, then it would make more sense, as that is something apparent to distinguish Goodyng from the others, while his intelligence has not yet been shown for Ron to know. Alright. So continuing on, he gets punched in the gut, he's down, everyone is just walking away, leaving, except for Gina. She comes up, she helps him. You're right, I will be in a minute, all that. And she also explains how, that, Ron is just like this. He is the school bully, basically, was before, is still now. She just knows that. That's a little odd. I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense, but still. A teacher, an administrator, something like that, comes up. It's like, shouldn't you be in class? And she immediately just rats on Ron, which, I mean, yeah. So I get the whole don't snitch kind of aspect, but it's also, and even Goodyng is like, no, I don't want you to handle. I'll handle it. I don't want to be a snitch. And it's like, that rule doesn't have to apply to her because she was a witness. And there's also that element of sometimes it is appropriate. I mean, it's like, I guess in high school, if you're confident you can deal with itself, it makes sense. I was only bullied once in elementary school, and at that age, nah. Go to the teacher. That's very much what you should be doing. Anyway. I'll live. Are you alright? Ask the administrator. I'll live. What are your names? Cato Goodyng, Gina Adams. So this is how we get their actual names. One thing that I find a little odd here, I mean, she has a shirt that shows a skateboard on there, so she likes skateboarding. That's fine. It's, in theory, still the middle school, though. And there's a reference to, like, shouldn't you be in your next class? She has her skateboard with her. Wouldn't you? I mean, true, I'm not really a skateboarder, but wouldn't you put your skateboard in a locker instead of carrying it around the entire time, since you don't need it the entire day? Anyway. Gina explains a little bit more, but I mean, it's still this is now, these two have become friends. They do eventually get married, which is not at all surprising. I don't remember if I said it or not yet, but I did put in my notes. It's kind of a generic story. But yeah, so now they are friends. And Goodyng has to think about this. He's some sort of genius, but he gets hit at least one more time, which, I mean, I guess in one way it helps because he now knows how Ron is going to behave, but it's also, they literally show Ron like hiding in the shadows to come out, and it's like, true, it's been a long time, but are bullies actually that premeditated? I mean, like, that you're just actually going to look in the shadows, looking around the corner to try to, and that does seem a little much, but I mean, it can happen. It's not unreasonable. It just seems a little odd. So yeah, Ron punches him again. It's like, this will be the last time, because he takes some sort of board, whether it's cardboard or actual wood, I'm not sure, and puts thumbtacks in it so he can hide under his shirt, because he's being consistently just punched in the gut. Well, now when Ron does that, he'll be driving his fist into thumbtacks. And showing that Goodyng is not a completely good kid, he actually takes a picture of Ron in pain with his hand bleeding. Oh yeah, then we get this. So naturally, graduates. Goodyng is a valedictorian. And he has a little bit of fun, it seems, as he's giving the speech. Like a lot of you, I had to memorize Mark Antony's funeral oration. I'd hate to see it go to waste. Friends, Romans, countrymen, and apparently everyone then yells out, "No, not again." So he knows his audience and they know him. But then starts talking about Stoicism in here, and it's like, okay, yeah, Stoicism. I read some of this stuff. It's actually over there. So I'm familiar with this, but the initial description, what it goes on to, I'm fine with, but the initial description does not make much sense to me. That Stoicism is an ancient Greek philosophy that teaches the virtue of the highest good based on knowledge. No. Stoicism is not itself tied to knowledge. It's more about control, temperance, discipline, and thinking things through. But I mean, what follows from this is to live in harmony with nature. Yeah, that agrees. To be indifferent to the vicissitudes of fortune, including pleasure and pain. Yeah. The discipline of desire. What do we need in order to feel fulfilled? The discipline of what do we need in order to feel fulfilled? The discipline of action. How to engage the world around us? The discipline of assent. Can we learn to live our lives as they really are? That's Stoicism. That, yes, definitely agrees with that. But the highest good based on knowledge, it's like not necessarily, because you could have somebody who is incredibly ignorant still be a very effective Stoic. So, yeah, does not make much sense. Anyhow. Actually, let me quickly look at one. There's the... Okay. Just noticing something about Gina's shirt, and at one point she's wearing a shirt that just has a yellow circle on there. Looks like that's all it is. But then after graduation, he's like at a beach party kind of thing, and he's wearing it's like a smiley face with the smile having teeth, but also an eye patch on. I was just like, we know they're connected. It just would be in that the characters are connected. It would be interesting if they were actually starting to match each other's dress. Anyway, he's out being congratulated, and somebody from a university has come and it's like, hey, we want to talk to you about a scholarship. And it's like, oh, cool. And there's also mention here, I read your piece on boomboxes. That will come up later. But Goodyng does also make the point of that the school doesn't offer science scholarships. So he's asking what company are you with, and a company called actually, is it? No, it takes a little bit. Madwire. So it's basically he is both from the university, but apparently also connected with this company. The company wants to fund Goodyng going to college, so then they basically own him when he graduates. They own as in he will be somewhat attached to them already. And so we'll have to come to, most likely come to get a job with them. We next then see Ron, who has decided to enter the military, which, does make some sense. But there's also the, sorry, it's just, he's in, like, training combat with a guy, and when the guy quotes Shakespeare, throws him off, and so he's able to get hit, because Ron does lack discipline to that degree. But we get this. Why'd you sign up? This is Texas. This is my country. I want to give back. You? I want to kill people. I would like to believe that at times of peace, which there's no indication it's not, but that at times of peace, somebody like that would not be kept in the military, or would have that broken out of them, because that's not a reliable person. Because, legitimately, how do you know that is somebody that has your back? How do you know you can rely on somebody like that if they just want to go out and kill? It's like that is antisocial behavior. That is potentially psychotic behavior. I would not think you would want to trust either of them, but anyway. Comic book. Let's keep going. What criticisms I have of the story are largely like that, where it's like, yeah, I don't think... Well, there is... Actually, I just remember one more, but anyhow... But a lot of them are like that, where it's like, I don't think that'd actually be how that works. I mean, it's possible, but... Alright, so Goodyng arrives at the university. Just so happens Gina is also going there because they have a good pre-med. And just says, I'm not stalking you, and he says in reply, this is not a coincidence. As said, it's no surprise these two get married. I'm just trying to think, is there supposed to be much significance here? But the two of them are somewhere studying. He invites her out to a place to where there's some band that they'll like. She says she can't because she's working at St. Bartholomew's, going to be giving out dinner, serving dinner, and so she invites him. I'm just, that's not inappropriate. I mean, in some ways, that can be a good first date. I mean, they've known each other for years at this point, but still, it's like, in a way, that does make sense, because it gives you, it is something that is important enough to her to be like, I can't go because I need to do this, but hey, if you come with me, we can go after. It's like, it is her declaring her values here that is positive. And the inviting him, the sharing with him, that's actually not a bad thing. But I'm just, we never see it again, and I'm just trying to think, is there anything later on that this, like, connects back to? Like, something that he learned from, I don't actually think there is. It's just, did this. Yeah, we then have, Ron is apparently on a mission, being dropped out of a transport plane to apparently attack some cartel holding, which, at least it's a transport plane. I mean, it's like, this actually makes sense, unlike using a B-2. Not the right tool for the job. Anyway, goes in, apparently he decided, hey, they're, at the cartel. Oh, it's him and another guy. Is that supposed to be the same guy as earlier? I don't think so. But anyway, he and another guy decided, why don't we steal some drugs? So they're caught, sentenced to 12 years of hard labor. And naturally, there's somebody there there's a guard there that is corrupt. And, is going to help them escape as long as they don't kill him. But also, then join up with this Procurement Inc., International Military Contractors. Lovely. And it's just like, really? It's just, we're just gonna break these guys out of a military prison by subduing one guard? You really think it's that easy? I get it's comic books, but anyway. I mean, if anything, you would think that they would have intervened sooner so that they weren't sentenced, kind of thing. It's like, get them out of that. Because it is also part of the reason this even works is just the whole, they're taken out of Texas, and apparently with the United States being fractured, Texas being on its own, they don't have extradition with their former neighbors. Well, with the other states, the former state. They don't have extradition with their neighbors to be able to say, hey, that asshole broke out, give him back. And actually, there's also that. Hang on. Camp Tarragon Marine Corps Base Camp. He broke out of a Marine facility. He was in some branch of the military. That's not really stated, not particularly relevant either, but it's just, depending, that's a very high-level organization where, I mean, it's like, if Texas, I don't know if Texas needs, I still don't know what the state of Texas is, if Texas is a completely independent country or not. Because why explain that, even though it comes up? But yeah, it just, they might not need extradition. It might be hey, guess what? You're turning him in. Like, the FBI can go and arrest you across state lines kind of thing. Anyway, they agree to work with him. Goodyng is still in college, talking with the professor, has an idea. You want to use antimatter to put out fires? Yeah, just, you want to use antimatter to put out fires? I'm sorry, this is just stupid. I understand using explosives to put out fires. That actually makes sense. Because an explosion can consume the oxygen that the fire would need. Because an explosion can be much, much faster than fire. But also the pulse, the wave, the explosion coming out can also disrupt the fire itself. Probably not all fires, but still, it's like that does make some sense. Why would you use antimatter, though? It's like, there's so many conventional explosives that would be far more reasonable. Like, C4 even. Because if I remember correctly, C4, it were just on fire, isn't actually going to blow up. Pretty sure it is actually that stable. That requires, like, a specifically high temperature, which fires don't necessarily reach, or, like, an electrical charge. Like, you need something special to detonate. So if you could tune that, that would make a hell of a lot more sense than antimatter, which is also very hard to produce. I mean, this is just, like, stupid levels of sci-fi. Later on, there's some other stuff where it's like, excuse me, where it's just like, yeah, that's not quite, like, you're really pushing some things here, but it's like extreme on the level of if this is science fiction or just straight up fantasy. There's some stuff later on that's like that. This is like, no, people who actually know what they're talking about can be like, what the hell are you talking? No, you wouldn't do this. But it does at least demonstrate that Goodyng is thinking of a way to control this down to smaller scales. So really, we're talking about he's figuring out a way to control the explosive power of antimatter more so than he's coming up with a way to fight fires. It's like, anyway, now we get back to Ron, who he's being sent on a mission into Argentina, where they're doing some gain-of-function research. Yeah, there's a dude just bleeding heavily, but Ron and a friend are dropped out of a plane, even though this plane would have no capability of doing so. It's clearly a single-engine fighter, and we can see like a door open at the base. I don't know how well it'll come through. But here's the plane, and there is a red block on it. I don't know if that's coming through in there. But in theory, that's like, oh yeah, they're dropping on the bomb bay. Yes, fighters, well, it might not be a bomb, but missiles, they do have bays there. That's fine. It also would suggest this might be a stealth craft because when you don't care about stealth, you just hang those things on the outside. But it still is... No, this isn't a plane that would be dropping people out of it. Okay? That's transport planes. Personnel planes. This is... No. Just... Because also that location, it wouldn't be pressurized, so you're not necessarily going to have enough oxygen, and you also very possibly don't have any heating in there to survive. It just... No. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? They jump out. They're diving down. They get in there. Find out that this is Project Hemorrhage. They want all the data put into a USB stick. They see the dude who is suffering from it and actually walk in to investigate. It's like they're doing gain-of-function research, so there's some sort of virus or bacteria going on here. That dude is bleeding out of every orifice very heavily, and you're like, oh, let's walk in and see what it looks like up close. But it continues where the building has an antenna or something on the top of it that apparently runs directly into that facility, so now lightning hits it, goes down, and hits him, because he's standing underneath this. It's like... That's not how lightning rods work. It's not how antennas work either, because antennas, you do actually have a system run to ground because you don't want them struck by lightning and then going anywhere inside of the building. That's incredibly dangerous. Unless you're doing some sort of Frankenstein shit. But the problem there is, there's no indication that they're doing Frankenstein shit here. It's just, he's in this room with this guy bleeding heavily and apparently gets hit by electricity. By a lightning strike. CPR is performed. He'll survive. But it's just like, what? This is stupid. Anyway, moving on. By the way, the pace of time passing is rapid at times, which I find just frustrating as far as what else is going on. Like, one thing I actually made note of. At the start, Kato's sitting at dinner. Father, mother, sister. They cease to exist after that page. Like, no, seriously, he has no family anymore. It's just Gina. And it's like, actually, hang on. I'm just, yeah, I don't see any clear indication that his family's at the wedding there. I mean, it's just, I understand. Hey, the parents serve the purpose of just being supportive. What about the sister, though? Where's the sister? Just make him only child if you're not going to bother with him. Anyway, he's graduated from college now. Working at Madwire. That do a whole bunch of things, cell phones, but also apparently they came up with X-ray glasses, which, I mean, no. Best case scenario for what could be here, if it is directly X-rays, is just you have somebody stand in front of something that's emitting X-rays and you're wearing glasses that convert the X-ray light into something visible so that you can see. That's if they are directly doing that, as opposed to just, no, you're doing a real-time X-ray and just you're wearing a head-mounted display that's rendering the data on there, which is also doable, but not as impressive as far as optics, because that's mainly just computers having to do that processing in real time. Anyway, he gets an office of his own, takes down the modern art piece to put up a crazed green rat driving a rat rod on the wall. I mean, it's his taste, and they haven't really changed, it seems. While in his office, he's on the computer talking to Gina, but is talking about how I've identified two promising avenues towards unlocking new light frequencies, which can be used to manipulate quarks and gluons. It may be possible to create new elements which will open up unlimited possibilities in medicine and communications. So as far as the unlocking new light that can interact with quarks and gluons, it's like, okay, I'm not sure that's it's at the edge of sci-fi where it's like, I think I have to accept it because it's not too far over the line, but it's at least close to the line. I'm not sure if at that point light would interact well with these subnucleonic particles. And just to explain that, so nucleus of an atom is made up of some number of protons and neutrons. Protons and neutrons are not elementary particles. An electron is. An electron, it exists. There's nothing small. There's nothing that is comprised of. Protons and neutrons, however, are comprised of quarks. And also gluons. I'll get to that. But protons and neutrons both have 3 different quarks in them, and there's up quarks, down quarks, top quarks, bottom quarks, strange quarks, and love quarks. I'm trying to remember, because it's also, there's 6, but there's actually, one of them has 2 different names. I don't remember. But in any case, for the most part, we're just concerned with, I'm pretty sure it's up and down quarks. The top and, because up and down quarks are like the most common, top and bottom are up and down pair together, top and bottom pair together, strange and love pair together, and those pairs grow in size. So I'm pretty sure it is up and down is the name of the smallest quarks. But that's what comprises protons and neutrons. And they also they have 2/3 and 1/3 charges. It gets kind of wild. And I'm not even touching on color charge yet. But because let me see, I might not have this correct, but up quarks have positive 2/3 charges. Down quarks have negative 1/3. So when you have 2 up quarks and 1 down quark, you arrive at a charge of 1. That's in a proton. In a neutron, it's 1 up quark, 2 down quarks. So it's 2/3 positive minus 2/3 negative, so it goes neutral. I'll be honest, at that point, it might be that's not what is actually happening. It's just the way we can explain it. Quantum mechanics can be like that at times. Anyway, and there's also the notion at this point of color charges, where one has the red charge, green charge, and blue charge, and this is how you can have 3 things together, because we're so used to like positive and negative charges, so think in duality, but this is 3. three things. So color charges there. The gluons, those are what... I'm just trying to remember. I'm pretty sure gluons are what hold the nucleus together. It's either that what are actually holding like a proton next to a proton, because they should repel, or they might... Well, no, they are subnucleonic. Well, that just means that they're within the nucleus. I'm trying to remember if they are also binding together the quarks. That I don't quite recall. But still, we are talking about the literal building parts here of protons and neutrons. So the idea of light being able to interact with them, that would have to be incredibly high frequency light so that you have the very tiniest of wavelengths. And it's like, yeah, that's getting to the edge. But then the idea that might be able to use this to create new elements. I don't know. I mean, in theory, yes, because you might be able to do things to like stabilize a nucleus for a longer period of time than would normally, and that way you can then like cheat the slow process, the S process for nucleosynthesis. But I don't know. But then the whole unlimited possibilities in medicine and communications. No. No. It's like new elements won't really impact that, or won't have to. I get the idea of medical isotopes, but that's not new elements that you need there. That's new isotopes, and there's other things that you can do there. And as far as communications, why would you think a new element would help with communications? That I really don't know. But anyway, he's talking with her, and she just goes, "I got us some court time. Want you to meet some friends of mine. Say when." So it's like he's potentially telling her about how, oh yes, I'm doing this incredibly advanced work. Cool. I got us a tennis court. Want to come? Which, I mean, hey, nothing wrong with that. It's just a little funny. Does go, meets them, apparently plays... Okay, I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going on here, but it's like they play well together there. And all that. And next thing we see, he proposes. Next thing after that is they're married, going off on their honeymoon, and this is when the company Madwire has learned that, well, a competitor has announced a nuclear reactor the size of a bread box. And Goody's like, that was my idea. Do you think they stole it? It's like they're going to start working out the security stuff, but they also want him to now just finish the design so they can get to market first. And even say, drop everything and work on the reactor. I don't recall submitting a proposal. This, I think, is significant. Everything you do, everything you create belongs to Madwire. It's in your contract. Yeah, I hate that aspect of contracts, but that is the thing. But it's like, I don't recall submitting a proposal. How do they know then? How do they know that Goodyng had this idea? I mean, there's just a question that I have here as far as, did they maybe just lie to him? Because this also doesn't really come up later. But did they maybe just lie to him to try to, like, hey, we could make more money on this than this other stuff he's doing. So, we'll just make up a reason he has to, like, rush through and do this. Also, by the way, nuclear reactors, depending on the kind of reactor you're talking about, if it's just fission being the size of a bread box, I think we already have those. Yeah, we used to build space missions, satellites, that were powered by nuclear reactors. And it was literally, we just would stick a hunk of uranium and plutonium there and then have something that, because it's giving off heat and just absorbs that and converts it into electricity. Cassini, the Cassini space mission, which we had around Saturn, was the last major mission we had that also used that. I don't know if New Horizons did. Cassini was certainly, as I recall, was the last of missions like that are sent far away from Earth. That was like intentionally over $1 billion. New Horizons, I think that was, it may have ended up being over $1 billion, but I think that may have been more so hundreds of millions. But I'm not sure. That certainly went far enough. You would think a nuclear reactor would make sense, but Not sure. Anyway, but yeah, nuclear reactors the size of Bird Box, not that impressive. Let's also look it up. There was a time when I think Ford managed to build. It might not have been Ford. It might have been a different car company. Actually, made a nuclear-powered truck. Yeah, this is what the environmentalists stole from us, and the Soviet Union. It's a weird thing there, but as I recall, there is actually reason to believe that yes, the Soviet Union, through the KGB, influenced America's environmental movement because nuclear power should be whatever environmentalist wants because it requires comparatively minimal resources for the amount of energy that's produced, has the smallest impact on the environment, and all that. So it's like it is a great option. I was like, there was speculation back when we were actually building nuclear reactors that we could get to the point that your electric bill would actually only be for access. That the electricity itself would be so cheap, so plentiful, that they couldn't charge you for it. That it would be unreasonable to do so. It's like, that's what we lost. Why would the Soviet Union do this? It's the same reason why our nuclear reactors have always been uranium as opposed to something like thorium. Because the isotopes that a uranium reactor can produce are themselves still viable for weapons. So uranium can produce plutonium, which can then be taken and used to make nuclear weapons. So by cutting away at nuclear power, you're also cutting away at the ability to produce additional nuclear weapons. So it's one of those things where it's like, even if it's not true, the conspiracy theory still has a lot of reasoning to it, where it's like, it's not impossible. And plus, I think it was one of the founders of Greenpeace, was one who, he left the organization for a while, like went, did some other stuff, came back, and suddenly they were anti-nuclear, and he was very much pro-nuclear power because he recognized, no, this is great, this is wonderful, this is exactly what we want. But came back, and then it was no longer the group he had made. I mean, it also didn't help that you had things like 3 Mile Island and also the China Syndrome, which is total nonsense. I don't even want to watch that movie. But anyway, but 3 Mile Island, when no one was hurt. Eventually had Chernobyl, which, well, yeah, 3 Mile Island, we now know how to avoid that. Chernobyl was in part because they were doing things that they were never supposed to do. I mean, nuclear power, we can very much do well and do correctly. And it has more of a track record of being done well and being done correctly than not. But nope, have to abandon it. Anyway, Gooding is thinking about leaving the company. Talking over with Gina, and I appreciate her response. We'd have to downsize. It's like, that's it. Not saying I don't want you to do this, just say we'd have to downsize. But then it seems that the decision is made for him because he goes in the next day, or whenever it is. I'm sorry, sir, you've been banned from entering. I work here. Sir, your professional belongings will be delivered to you later this week. Why they would fire him before he's made his decision is curious. So then he goes on and just founds his own company, inventing different stuff, including the Bass Jammer, which is apparently, I mean, it does seem from what is described here, it's an EMP that is triggered by the sounds from boomboxes. So if somebody has got a boombox blaring and it's annoying you, and you have this, it just is like, oh, boombox, send out an EMP, shut it off. No indication that it is able to focus this, it just fries electronics, perhaps indiscriminately, which would be a major problem. Then continues to make some other things, such as a Gooding's Saver Saber. So it's got a cartridge in there, so as you cut meat, it injects something into it. He apparently has some sort of bulletproof material that he has as a suit. He's made into a suit, so he is in fact building a super suit. As he continues on, he is learning martial arts, and when she even asks about this, his response is, combat fascinates all men. If I'm going to exercise, I may as well learn something useful. Makes sense. And then we cut back to Ron, who he is recovered, for whatever reason he now has a shaved head, but his experience has left him the ability to control his own heart rate, and when he is in contact with somebody to control theirs as well. So he can actually lower somebody else's heart rate by being in contact with them, or raise it. And so this I'm here to kill person now has a way to kill people with a touch, and proceeds to do so. They give him a hover pack for some reason, and use him as basically just an assassin. Some of this starts connecting back to Goodyng, though, as far as, like, it's people he knows, including one guy who worked for him. So, Goodyng decides, I'm gonna deal with this. It also, they managed to get information off of an Argentinian satellite that seemed to indicate that, yeah, it's Ron from our high school days. Don't you remember him, Gina? So then he basically lays a trap to catch Ron. It works. Because remember, he's technically prepared. He's got his suit that will protect him. He's been trained in martial art. He's been trained in martial arts. There we go. Speech impediment. Fun. While fighting Ron, one thing he actually does, because it turns out that Ron's suit is also bulletproof, he actually throws the knife at Ron, who catches it, but the infusion goes off, so it blinds him enough to then be shot with a tranquilizer. So then the police come, take him away. He needs to go to a medical ward. We see a thing about, I'll come back to this, we see a thing about him putting out a fire, Goodyng, or rather his company. But then somebody impersonating Texas Rangers tells the security for Ron to leave, and naturally then breaks him out. I find this somewhat annoying, though, because when the sheriff comes to tell Goodyng about this, how did he escape? Some guy, he was wearing a scrambler, knocked out the... No mention about he was impersonating Texas Rangers. I feel that's kind of important, because that's not a small thing. Right? Impersonating law enforcement is not a small thing. There's also the interesting thing that, in theory, it's not been stated, but in theory, Goodyng is in Forest Park. This dude, potentially, he was at least tried and convicted and sentenced in Texas. Forest Park is in Texas. And they're not, like, just, oh, well, we have to put him back in the Marine camp to serve out his sentence. There's no mention of, yeah, we actually have an outstanding warrant for him for escaping jail, for breaking jail. I was like, none of that. None of that. And that is actually important. Anyway, going back to the fire thing, apparently he's now taking over, he has his company now taking over the fire department, where it's like completely free, just, hey, it's what we're doing. Where he has some sort of quadcopter drone thing that uses nanotechnology to extinguish the fire and extinguish fires in less than a minute. No mention of antimatter, which that I appreciate, because that's stupid. Not entirely sure how nanotech would do better. I guess in theory you could have it be the nanotechnology seeks out the fire, is able to identify the heat source, and then go en masse there to produce a film that will cut off the material that is burning, so the fuel that is burning from the oxygen, because that would work. So long as the technology itself, the nanotechnology itself, will not combust. Because it's like, if you do just get that film over it, then you're good. Because it as long as the air can't get there, the oxygen can't get in there, yeah, combustion will be stopped. Yeah. So, I still have to give this a fail to recommend. But it's a 1. It's positively flavored. It is positively flavored. I don't feel like this would be quite a weak recommendation. Because, as I already said once, it feels very generic. I mean, it's like, okay, he's a super bright kid, and things are just going well for him. Yes, there are some struggles, but he found the girl, got the girl, he dealt with a bully in a way that the bully learned his lesson. Bully comes back, and Bully just happens to be the one who comes back. I mean, it's like, he's never an underdog in this. Never once. He's always, like, the top dog. It's just, is he choosing to compete or not? When he was working for Madwire, he was good there. But it's like, oh, you fired me. And it's not even clear why, but it's like, okay, well, then now I'm going to just start my own company because he basically, yeah, he always had the ability to, he just didn't have the need to. Now he does have the need to, so he's doing it. I mean, it's like, fine, I'm good with the story. But it's still, this is quite generic. There are those little things that do annoy me as well, so it's just, I don't think I can give it even a weak recommendation. I mean, maybe when I think about it later, but right now I'm no, it has to say weak recommendation because even though I do feel some connection here, I do find it interesting. I do like what's going on here. This is kind of, I like science fiction. I'm very technically minded, so yes, it does connect with me. But recommendation is supposed to be, I enjoyed it, and I'm not confident in saying that because just so generic that, yeah, I mean, this is the kind of story that I would have imagined myself when, like, in middle school or high school for what I would like to be, because I've always been technically minded. So it's just like, yeah, I'd want to go up and be like Goodyng. It's like, great. I'm not that kid anymore. I know that there's more nuance to the world than that. You could put that in here, but that's not what we got. And just, yeah. So it's... No, it has to be failed to recommend, but positively flavored. Positively flavored. Definitely that. And I did also like this better than Salvage, which I also gave the same... also put into the same category. I do like this one better. That may be just personal taste, though, because, as I said, this is the kind of story that I do personally connect with, so, and I do personally enjoy. But yeah, it's very generic. And just, like I said with Gina earlier on, I mean, it's like, meets Gina. Obviously, this is going to be the love interest. Obviously, they're going to get married. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be obvious that they get married, but you could at least make him work for it a little bit more. I mean, it's like something. I mean, again, don't have time for it all, but it's kind of like, you know, going back to the whole thing about, is this just how comic books are? In a novel, you can have this stretched out. You can have the greater investigation here. And it's also kind of funny. The first book I self-published, kind of similar to this in some ways. And, yeah, kind of similar in a lot of ways. But here's the thing. I don't recommend that. In part because the way I would put it is I wrote that when my head was in the clouds. Since then, my feet are firmly on the ground. This isn't quite as bad, I think, as what I wrote. But there is still the element of this is head in the clouds kind of stuff. It's not completely that. It's not as far in the clouds as mine was. But it still is very much, that's what I'm seeing here. So I know this isn't real, this isn't grounded. Give me more. Ground it. Make it, don't use a fighter jet to parachute people in. It's like, you can, but is that just a comic book thing? I don't know, and it'll be interesting to continue reading this. It'll also be, I'm not going to say what it is, because I tend not to talk about what I may do assigned reading in videos later. But there's another comic book that I have ordered, technically two actually. Somebody completely different writer, to my knowledge, has not worked on anything in this. Anything in the Rippaverse, I should say. That'll be interesting to see. Maybe that will be sufficiently different that it'll be like, okay, no, this isn't just how comic books are. This is just how at least some Rippaverse comics are. It's like, okay. So we'll see. That one, that other comic book, I will say, I'm not, just to defend, because why did I want the omnibus? Because in theory, all the questions that are opened in this, in theory, also closed in it, between the covers. Probably the reason why I went with the omnibus as opposed to, like, okay, Goodyng, right? If you're just listing off the kind of stuff that's in the Rippaverse, Goodyng would be the one. It would be like, I'd be most likely to be like, hey, yeah, I'll get that. But if there's references in Goodyng to in ISOM, then I'm not going to understand that if all I get is Goodyng. Getting the omnibus, in theory, I get all those answers. By the way, ISOM is next. But this other comic book that I might do assigned reading in, I'm not sure. Haven't decided on that yet. It'll depend on when we get here. Is more horror. So in theory, I shouldn't have to worry about references. It's also like the first two in... I'm not even sure if it counts as a series, but it's the first two. So again, I shouldn't have to worry about references. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. See you next time when we get to that guy. ISOM. Ill-advised. Part 1. Ill-advised part 1. That'll be interesting. And the 3 parts. ISOM 1, 2, and 3. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how those go. See you there.